Hey guys, Mortorcus here. So in this video, we're continuing the Cosmic Creation card reviews. That was quite a mouthful. So we're going to be looking at Viktor, one of the new champions coming to the game in this coming expansion. He is going to be the Piltover and Zaun champion, along with his new mechanic, which is Augment. So looking at Viktor, we see he is a 4-mana 2/4 with Augment, and round start, create a Hex Core upgrade in hand. And he levels up after you've played 8+ created cards. So this Augment keyword, it effectively gives you +1 attack every time you play a created card. Viktor clearly has a lot of synergy with that. And once he's leveled up, you see he gains the +1/+1 that you would often get, and you get your created cards cost 1 less. So that's not a huge upside to playing 8 created cards. That is quite a few cards you have to play out. But the level up, I don't believe, is very important to Viktor. I think the main thing is that the Augment keyword is going to give him a lot of stats, and the other huge thing is the Hex Core upgrade. So we're going to look at that, which is 1 mana slow speed fleeting spell, and it grants Viktor a random keyword. So you're going to be stockpiling all of these keywords onto Viktor. He's getting extra attack every time you play a created card. Often it's going to be these Hex Core upgrades, because you're getting one of those every turn. So if you get Overwhelm, he's going to be a huge threat, something like Elusive, then he's going under all of their blockers and going straight to the Nexus. Regen lets him trade out with things, especially combined with Challenger. All these different keywords are going to give you huge upsides. And even if you whiff and get like pretty weak keyword one turn, you can probably get a better one next turn, as long as he still sticks around. So I think he's going to be really strong. He's going to be a must-remove card, because he's just going to snowball out of control so hard, so fast. Even getting some really cool keywords like Spell Shield might keep him alive. Stuff like Tough as well. So if your opponent doesn't get him off the board, I think he could basically win the game on his own. Leveling him up isn't that important, but it will make it so that you can keep accelerating faster with all this extra cards. I don't especially think that you'll have a lot of cards left by the time you get there, but I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say exactly how many cards you might have by that point. But given that you are spending your mana on the created cards, I suppose you might not have spent too much mana or had too much mana left to play other stuff. So you might still have some stuff in your hand that can generate things and still get discounts on it and such. Either way, I think the idea of Viktor is super exciting. I think he will definitely be very impactful in the meta, as we'll see. And let's look at the rest of his support cards. So his champ spell is 1 mana, fast speed spell, Death Ray Mark 1. So it deals 1 to a unit, and then you shuffle the Death Ray Mark 2 into the top 3 cards of your deck. Then you get to draw Death Ray Mark 2, which deals 2 to a unit and shuffles Death Ray Mark 3 into your deck, and that is 3 mana, deal 3. So it it's the scaling damage spell. You get the bigger one after you cast the first one, you get the biggest one after you cast the second one. But you still have to draw them out of your deck, and you are diluting the top decks a little bit if you are looking for something more impactful off the top. So that is the main thing that I'm a little worried about. Like, it reminds me of Avaros and Trapper, obviously, because that is the 3 mana 3/3 from Freljord, which shuffles the Yeti onto the top of your deck. But the Yeti is a 1 mana 5/5. That is a really impactful card. This is shuffling pretty meh cards. You start with this 1 mana deal 1, which is really low impact for a card. It's comparable like Go Hard, but that has Drain. This does not, and it has the upside of eventually turning into Pack Your Bags, and that's the big thing, right? Then this is giving you the upside of giving you another removal, which you still have to draw into, and it's a 2 mana deal 2, which is still kind of meh. It's a Mystic Shot that can't go face. And then a 3 mana deal 3, which we haven't really seen anything of, but it's still pretty normal baseline stuff, since, again, it can't go face. So maybe you run this just because it is generating cards, which works with the whole Augment idea, but I think more likely this isn't going to really hit any decks. You're just going to play it as Viktor's champ spell, and you might even not feel good about playing it as Viktor's champ spell. I think diluting your top decks is a really bad thing. Like, I've tried to run Go Hard in certain decks, and just the fact that you draw more of them when you really need something bigger, it's really not good to have stuff like that happening. So outside of having really strong board control already and just needing a few removal cards like that off the top, I don't think this is going to be what you want to be drawing. So I don't think anyone's going to be running this in their deck. I don't think that's very likely, but you never know. It might just be something, just some extra removal in some sort of control deck. Definitely no more than like 1 copy or so. That's just my opinion, though. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this whole idea of shuffling more removal on the top would be good in an aggro matchup, but I still feel like the cards that you put into your deck are normally going to be more impactful than that. Then we have Iterative Improvement, which is a burst speed spell for 2 mana. Pick a follower and create a copy of it in hand with +1/+1. So this can be used on your followers, it can be used on your opponent's followers. Often you're probably going to use it on your own followers. And I can imagine you can make tons of cool combos with this kind of thing. So this is a super flexible card. You can probably fit into a lot of different decks. Obviously it has huge synergy with Augment because you are generating more created cards, which you can then use with Viktor and all that kind of stuff. I think there's no way that this doesn't fit into at least the Viktor decks, probably finds ways into other decks that do want extra copies of stuff and are able to work into the Piltover and Zaun region. It might even be a good reason for you to go to Piltover and Zaun just because this card can give you some real combo potential. So I think it's going to see definitely quite a bit of play. I think it's going to be a very strong card. Even with that extra 2 mana that you got to spend to get that copy, I think it's definitely going to be worth it. Then we have Mechanized Mimic, 5 mana Augment, 3/4, and it's when it attacks, grant me all keywords on allies. So clearly this has mega synergy with Viktor. The Augment synergy is there. The keywords off of Viktor is there. That's really, really strong. It makes Give It All look a lot less useful, and clearly Viktor has a lot of synergy with Give It All, but if this is something that you're going to have on your board, you might just not need it because this will get all the keywords anyways. You're not getting it on all your guys, but if you can get a few Mimics out on the board, they got all the keywords that they're getting from Viktor, and then all the stats that they're getting from Augment. It's going to be really, really good. Clearly it's a little expensive at 5 mana, but I think that effect is super worth it. It's just, it might be a little bit vulnerable right before you get to attack when you do play it, and it's still a 4 health 5 drop. That might be a little hard, but 4 health is generally pretty safe. There's not a ton of things that do 4 damage. You'd probably have to use a destroy effect or do multiple instances of damage if you did want to do 4 damage that way. So I think this looks like a really strong card in the Viktor archetype, and is probably going to be something that you definitely need to include if you want to push that possibility of lethal and such. So definitely a strong inclusion. Then we have Calculated Creations, which is a 2-mana burst speed spell which either creates a armed gearhead, neandroid, or ballistic bot in hand. So we're going to look at all 3 of those cards. They are all cards that you can run in your deck, and probably will end up in that Viktor deck. And I imagine that this card will also make it into the Viktor deck. It does give you the option of all 3 of them, which is very flexible, and as we'll see, I think all of the 3 cards do look like they're going to be quite good. So the first one is Armed Gearhead, 1 mana, 1/1, Augment, and Quick Attack. So clearly a 1 mana, 1/1 isn't much to see. With Quick Attack, it's basically the Quick Attack Poro, which is, I mean, we're already kind of power creeping that pretty hard just by looking at that. But then you got the Quick Attack, so if you play 2 created cards, suddenly it's as big as the 2 mana card we have in Piltover, which is a 2 mana 3/1 Quick Attack. Obviously that doesn't see play just because it's at 1 health, but this is a 1-drop. So 1-drops, it's less worrisome for them to be at 1 health, clearly. And this is so non-committal that you could just throw it down there, and if it snowballs, it snowballs. They're going to have to deal with it. If it ends up with 5 attack or something, they're not just going to let it go Fates. So then it gets to easily remove your opponent's blockers, and it could be really strong in that way. Then the next one is Ballistic Bot, 2 mana, 1/3 Augment, and round start create an Ignition in hand. Ignition is a 1 mana slow speed fleeting spell which deals 1 to the enemy nexus. So it's like Warning Shot, but it costs 1 mana. Obviously, you wouldn't want to run a card like that, but because of the fact that it is generated off the Ballistic Bot, it's pretty worth, I'd say. It is helping your Augment cards, including itself, so as soon as you cast it, you're getting a 2 mana 2/3. Definitely not as bad anymore. And you can definitely see where this works decently well in burn decks, I'd imagine, just because you're getting that constant face damage off of it. And it would also work really well with things like Gangplank and Sejuani, stuff like that, where you do want to be getting that face damage every round so that you can get the level up. So that seems really good in decks like that, even more consistent than stuff like the Monkey Idol, which we have seen people running. So the burn possibility, the Sedge Gangplank possibility, and the Viktor possibility, this seems like one of the most flexible ones that we've seen here, and I can't imagine this not seeing play. It's going to fit into some archetypes, and probably a decent amount of them. I think it's going to be very strong. And the last of the 3 Calculated Creation cards is Neandroid, 3 mana, 1/3, Augment, and Elusive. So I believe this is going to be one of your big cards that you're trying to commit to try and end the game off of. You keep buffing it up by playing these created cards, and then you go face with it. Obviously, at 3 mana, a 1/3 stat line isn't very good. but after you've played a couple cards, suddenly it's a 3-mana, 3/3 elusive, as good as the Celestial card that you can get, and it can only get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's going to be a must-remove card for sure, and it can definitely be a way that you can hope to end games with these Viktor, Augment decks and such. Definitely going to be an impactful card in the coming meta. Then the last two Piltover and Zaun cards aren't necessarily fitting into the Viktor Augment stuff, but they are interesting. So we have the Landmark, which is 3 mana, Hexcore Foundry. Round start, all players draw 1. So we can play this in stuff like a Teemo deck. It's really cool for stuff like that because every turn you're drawing more, going to get more puff caps in their hand, dealing more damage to them. This is 2 cards per turn effectively because you're getting 1 card off the regular draw, 1 card off the extra draw. So if they don't get rid of it, it's going to accelerate the game a huge amount. You get more than 1 Hexcore Foundry down. Teemo decks could really see a lot of boost out of this. Maybe Teemo becomes really actually meta relevant. That would be really cool to see. Beyond that, you could put this into any deck that really needs to get through their deck quickly, like Twisted Fate would want to see something like this because they're getting more draws. Or like Go Hard decks, you could potentially do Go Hard in Piltover now. I was trying to do it before, but you just don't get through the deck quite as fast as I'd like. But with Hexcore Foundry, it seems a lot more viable, especially even when you get down to the bottom. You're going to be drawing 2 Go Hards a turn, maybe 3 if you've gotten all these Hexcore Foundries down. Then you're just popping off your pack your bags constantly. So this is definitely one of the more interesting landmarks. I think it could definitely do some cool things. And like obviously we've seen a few of the stronger landmarks now. Maybe these landmark removals are actually going to start seeing play to try and deal with this stuff. But yeah, overall I think this is definitely another one of the cool landmarks, and I'm going to be trying out quite a few decks with this one. And then the last Piltover and Zaun card we have is Aftershock. 4 mana, slow speed, deal 3 to anything or destroy a landmark. So this is our landmark removal for Piltover and Zaun, and it is a good one. So you have the flexibility of removing landmarks, but without that, this is really strong. 3 to anything means that you can do it on units, but you can also do it to face. And burn like that is super valuable. This is basically Decimate for 1 less mana, you deal 1 less damage, but now you have all this flexibility of what you do with that damage. If you're doing a burn deck, this card has got to be in there, I would imagine. And even in other decks, I can see it making it into those. I think this is going to be really strong, definitely in those burn strategies, but certainly you could fit it into other decks that do at least a little bit care about landmarks. Or maybe just need that 3 damage without having that discard downside of get excited, and can just commit the time of the slow speed. But definitely I think the burn idea is going to be forefront on this card, and I think that we're going to see a lot more burn in the future from Piltover and Zaun. So that's going to be it for these cards. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate the viewership. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, comment down below what you think of these new cards, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next